guys, welcome to this special bonus episode. Hey guys, welcome to this special bonus episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, and if you don't know me, maybe watch one of my other podcasts first, because I usually record a weekly podcast on what I'm knitting on, what I finished, what I'm thinking about knitting, what yarn I've been buying and hoarding, and so on. And for a couple of months now, I have promised you guys a sweater bonus episode, in which I just want to talk a little bit about the sweaters that I've knit and how they've worn, how I've liked them, how maybe I didn't like some of them, and so on. And I never found time for it, but today is a good day and I'm feeling energized after just recording a regular episode, so I thought I will just grab some of my sweaters, which are in this beautiful pile right next to me. Show them a little bit. There they are. And now I've messed up my setup. Isn't that nice? And I just will talk a little bit about them, and yes, this will a good podcaster would have organized it and maybe thought about it in advance. Did I do any of those things? No. Is it going to be a comprehensive show of all of my sweaters? No. What I've done is I've picked out the sweaters that are lying around the apartment, of which there are many, because I tend to wear a lot of them on a regular basis, so I'll always have like 3 or 4 sweaters going on rotation. So I just picked those up, as well as a couple out of my closet, and I'm just going to talk about those. I have many more sweaters, I'm sure, some of them in my closet, some of them, I don't know, in the wash, I don't know. But anyways, I'm just going to tell you my personal experience, so as usual, I'm not sponsored, I'm not told what to say, and these are just my personal views on things, so take them as that. And in case you didn't watch my recent podcast, what I'm wearing today is my Jolie sweater, which is a beautiful pattern with a lace yoke. And for this, as with a lot of the sweaters that I'm going to show you, I don't know the name of the designer, but you can find all of my sweaters, all of my knitting projects on Ravelry under the username Wipfi, which will be in the beginning of this episode for you to write down. It is WUEPFI. And if I'm super smart, I will try to link to my project page. That would be good, wouldn't it? I will try to do that, but no promises made. But you should find all of the sweaters that I'm going to talk about somewhere in my projects. Most of them I think were knitted this year. A couple weren't. Let's see. Yeah, I think all but 2 were knit this year. So you will find them. So as I'm wearing this is relatively new. I've worn this a couple of times. I finished it maybe 2 or 3 months ago, but then my time measurement is usually off. But I really like it. The yarn that I use for this is Wollmeise Pure, which is their 100% merino yarn. It's my first time using that for a garment, but it's a really nice one. It is soft, and I think this has a different ply structure. I want to say this is at least 8 plies or something, but still a fingering weight yarn, so that means it's very soft but also quite hardy, just because it's plied a certain way that makes it very durable. So I've really liked wearing this yarn on my skin. I've liked wearing the pullover. It hasn't really pilled very much at all. There's a tiny bit of peeling, which I think is fine. And the sweater itself is a very comfortable one. I really enjoy it. I must say though, and that will go for many of the sweaters that I'm about to show you, I tend to do my own shaping and like arm length and so on, so you can't always blame that on the pattern if it's wrong. But yeah, I really like this one and I wear it quite a lot, and it's easy to sort of sweater to just wear over in a t-shirt and feel good about yourself. Next up, and I have to be careful not to collapse this bunch of sweaters which are collapsing on me. Next up is this sweater, which is the Threepmere. This is a pattern by Isolde Teague. This is my first ever pattern that I've knit from her. It's a colorwork pullover or sweater, and I have knitted out of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. This has quickly become one of my favorite sweaters and also one of my favorite yarns, which is why I want to possibly cast on another sweater out of this yarn today, which will be the Ispre sweater, the new one by Ellie of Scandia, which is in the Blooded Garn magazine. Anyways, again, my first sweater out of this yarn, which I loved every stitch of it, and the pattern itself is amazing. What's really cool about this pattern is that it uses a couple of different techniques, so you learn a lot while knitting this. One of those techniques is a special sort of trick on how to have really wide gaps between your color work, but not have any floats or any catching of floats, which sometimes can shine through. So that was really smart. Like, I don't want to give anything away, but that was a really cool trick to learn in a pattern. And this sweater, I wear it all the time. This is supposed to be a fingering weight yarn. For me personally, I think it knits up almost like a DK weight, and it's just a very fluffy, woolly yarn. But because the gauge is relatively loose, I wear this a lot when I'm working at home. I wear a lot of my sweaters because obviously I sit still while working, so it's not super warm. And the fit of the sweater is amazing. It's one of those constructions where you have... after you finish your yoke, which of course has increases, you then do a sort of short row combination with a couple more raglan increases, which you can maybe see here. And that just gives you a really, really good fit. And again, this yarn, I think it wears very well. Considering this is, I don't know how long this has been finished, not super long. This has become a little bit pilly, which is just the way the yarn works, that's fine. I have not used my gleaner on it. I'm not sure if you can tell. How do I show this to you? You can see it's got a bit of a halo, which is just the way the yarn is as well. And you can see there's pills on top. And there are a couple of areas where there's quite a few of them, but I think I just need to get them off. And this will be a very long-lasting garment anyways. So yeah, I really, really like it. Because I know you guys will ask, is this yarn scratchy? It is a woolly yarn, but for a woolly yarn, it is not super scratchy. So I personally think it is soft. Kai thinks it is scratchy. It's just a matter of personal preference as well. But if you like sort of like the woolly yarns, woolly wools, this is definitely one of them that I would recommend. And it just lends itself to color work really well. Like the color work just works so well and makes a beautiful fabric. So that is my Threadmere sweater. This is going to be a mess to clean up later. Next up is a sweater that I knit and then didn't wear for a long time and rediscovered lately, and now I'm wearing it all the time. This is my faded boxy sweater, a sweater pattern by Joji Locatelli. There's a couple of them out there now, but this is the original one, I think. It is a fingering weight boxy that you knit from the bottom up. And what I did is I knit a faded one, so I used 4 skeins of sock yarn. This yarn is Shebot Garne in their 80/20 merino nylon soft sock base. Again, I use this base a ton for socks. This is my first time knitting a garment with it. And what I did is I made this this boxy sweater. It looks very wide, right? It is super wide. But I actually cast on a lot less stitches, so the original is even wider than this, which is insane. I can't imagine it being wider than this because this is huge. I also made it longer, as I cast on less stitches. If you want to know how many, check my project pages. I don't know it off the top of my head. I also made it longer because I obviously wanted to get 4 colors in. When I finished it, I tried it on, and I was kind of disappointed in myself for making it long because it's nice to have a wide sweater, but when you have a wide sweater that is also very long, it turns into a tent. And in the beginning, that really, really bothered me, so I only wore it a couple of times at home. But then lately, I've been wearing this a ton, and I don't really mind. If I knit this again, which I think I will do the same width, but I would do it shorter just because I think it's more flattering if it's a super wide sweater to have it not necessarily cropped, but not very long, because this is going definitely past my bottom. So it's kind of been a journey with this one. I also thought it was way too flashy to really kind of wear it outside of home because, well, it's an out there sweater. So the next one I knit is going to be a little bit more toned down. But like I said, lately I've been living with this, like in this, like at home. It's just perfect. It's so cozy. It's so comfortable. So I've come around to the boxy after not really loving it. For this again, slight pilling. But I've worn this a lot, and I feel like if you wear a sweater a lot, it's fine if you can see it as well. And it's not the end of the world. And this is a sock yarn, so I think if I just de-pilled it a little bit and maybe give it a wash, it'll be fine. And it is super soft, of course, because it's a merino nylon sweater, so that makes it really comfortable as well. Next up, coffee. Next up is a cardigan that I'm really excited about. This is my second version of the Damiaka Lopa cardigan, which is also called the Flea cardigan, and it is by Piniguri. I didn't finish this too long ago. I finished this just before our trip to Oslo, which was in the beginning of November, so I finished this in October. It is a top-down colorwork yoke cardigan, which you knit as a sweater, and then in the end you attach some button bands and you sneak it. And I love this, you guys. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk myself up, but I just love the sweater so much. I have already bought yarn for a third. This was my first properly steeked cardigan. I steeked one before, which I will show you in a second, but this was the first one that I actually followed instructions and had a steeking panel and all that. I knit this out of Drops Flora, which is a wool and alpaca blend. Wasn't sure if it was going to be the best idea, but I do like it. It is a non-superwash yarn by Drops. I could look at this color work all day. Isn't it just so pretty? Like, look at that. I kind of mixed up the colors a little bit in the chart just because I wanted to. And I also love looking at the floats. Like, these are just, I love these floats. And if you're wanting to have a color work adventure, like this is, obviously it's a fingering weight garment. It has color work, it has the steeking, it has flea stitches all over the body, which means color work, more color work. But there is no long float, so the color work itself is quite easy. So if you have the patience to knit a big thing, I would recommend this because this was really, for me personally, this is one of the funnest garments I've ever knit, which is why I want to knit a third one. Like I said, knit out of a commercial wool and alpaca blend. And this sweater really got its test this cardigan, when I took it with me to Norway, because Norway was freezing and I lived in this. And that's where it really passed the test for me as well. So because it has the flea stitches, which are these tiny stitches here, you obviously have floats on the inside, which make this a very cozy and comfortable, almost like a double layer, because obviously here with the color work, and sorry for all the ends, it is a double layer, but even throughout the entire body and the sleeves you have floats every 3 or 4 rows. So that just makes it really comfortable and really warm, considering this is only a fingering weight garment. And yeah, it's worn amazingly well. You can again, I was surprised by this because this got pills, whereas a couple of sweaters, I did so many sweaters out of this yarn, and this is the first one that got pills very quickly. But I don't really know why. But again, like you can see it, I hope. But it's not the end of the world, and for me that's okay because I just love this garment a lot, and I wore it all the time in Norway. It kept me nice and warm. It will always for me be reminding me of that trip. And I wear this a lot around the house, and the fit of this is perfect. The first Damiaka Lopa that I knit, I think I knit one size smaller, possibly the small, and this might be the medium, but don't quote me on that. And if you're knitting this, I would actually recommend just going up a size, and then you have a really great fitting, comfortable cardigan that you can just throw on, and yeah, I really like it. So very happy with this garment. I almost never button it up because I'm just not a buttoning up things girl, and also I know who attached this button, which is myself, and I know that they're going to come off eventually, so I don't trust myself in terms of my button attaching skills. But there we go. Really love it. I think I've rambled on about this one enough, but could not recommend this pattern more. And actually, Piniguri just also released a new Flea sweater or cardigan, I'm not sure, in the new Bladet Garn, which is the magazine that I mentioned earlier about Ellie's designs. So I was really happy. I bought the magazine because I wanted Ellie's sweater, but I was very excited to see another one of hers in there as well. It is much simpler with basically, I think it just has Flea all over the garment. There's no other color work than that. But it looks really fun, and I really enjoyed knitting these Flea stitches, so I think I will be knitting that as well, because obviously I need to knit all the things. Next up, we have a not so successful garment. I will try not to talk about this for too long, because I've been evil about this cardigan often enough on the podcast, and now I've got fiber up my nose. Whew. Not surprising. This used to be the Birkin sweater by Boylan Knitworks. And I finished it, and a lot of people have complained that her color work yoke isn't great in terms of the increases. So what happens is, rather than knitting a sweater that kind of goes like this, you kind of knit like this. And obviously if you have arms that move upwards, that doesn't really work. That's my opinion on that. And a few people agree with me. So I decided to knit this relatively oversized in the hope that then it wouldn't really matter so much, but it still was a sweater that when I moved up my arms, it would go up. And it was really stupid. I was really angry at that. So what I decided to do is I steeked it, and I did not do a steek panel, so I just had to kind of cut and hope for the best. So what I did is I did a crochet steek just into the color work, which just like a random point in here. Imagine just cutting through that. That was tough. So I did a crochet reinforcement, and I also tacked down and sewed down a lot of the ends because I was really worried. And it worked out. I wouldn't recommend doing that again. If I steek more garments, which I will definitely do in the future, I will do steeking panels because this was not fun and not very safe. But so far it has held up. Sadly, it still doesn't really fit. It fits better, or the fact that it's now a cardigan, which you can leave open, kind of masks a little bit of the disaster, but it still just doesn't really fit great around the shoulders because there is just not enough space for my shoulders. So honestly, I haven't worn this. Honestly, this is kind of sitting in my wardrobe and I don't want to throw it out, but it also doesn't fit. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. The yarn is beautiful. The yarn is Holz Super Soft, which I'm sure you've heard before. It's a Danish yarn. It's a very fine yarn that blooms a lot after you wash it. It's a very light yarn, so it makes a very light garment, which I'll show you another one of in a second. So I like the yarn, but again, it's super cheap. So I wouldn't really worry about throwing this out in terms of losing all the money. Don't even make me consider ripping it out. Besides the fact that I wouldn't be able to salvage the yarn because I've cut it. There's just no way that I would do that. But that is my Birkin. Mixed feelings about it. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Coffee. Next up is a sweater that I wear all the time. And I call this my engagement sweater, which is stupid, but I got this yarn in France from La Droguerie, which is a yarn store that is, I think, in all the major French cities. I got mine in Nice. This was their 100% wool yarn. It's a DK weight, and I can't find it again, so I can't tell you the name of it. I knit a flax sweater, and this is my engagement sweater because I bought the yarn on the day trip in which later then Kai proposed to me. Anyways, so I bought the yarn and I knit a flax sweater, which is a pattern by Tin Can Knits, and this is what it looks like. I did quite a bit of shaping in this one as well, so it fits me really well. I really like the yarn. It is super soft. Because I really like the yarn and I really like the color, it's nice and mustardy, and the DK weight means that it's nice and warm without being crazy warm. I've worn this all the time. which means that by now this yarn, I'm not sure, they always look nice on camera, but this sweater has become a little bit grubby. You can't really tell. I know I'm picky on my sweaters as well, but this is one of those sweaters. I bought the yarn, I wore this a ton, I've been wearing it for half a year, less than that actually, but I wear it all the time. I'm going to wear it for a couple more months and then probably this thing's going to fall apart, and that's fine because I knit my sweaters. I mean, there are some heirloom pieces that I want to last forever, but I do knit my sweaters to wear them. And I wear a lot of hand knits all the time. So I'd rather wear them and wear them a lot, and then when their time is over, that's fine. And I also tend to kind of wear one garment for a long time. So I'll focus on 2 or 3 sweaters and wear them all the time, and then I'll rotate all of them. So I really don't mind. I still really like this yarn. I would totally buy it again if I had the chance to go back to France, which hopefully I will sometime in the future. The pattern is super easy, and this is just, I mean, this is a yarn that you could use for baby knits, for gifts, and you can just give this to anyone, and I think anyone would be happy with it. So very happy about that. And 3 more sweaters to go. Next up is another sweater surprise. This is, can you see how hairy this thing is? This is the Trayster sweater by Jennifer Steingass, who is Knit Love Wool. And this was my it was my second colorwork sweater that I've knit, and I knitted out of Let Lopi yarn, which is a very, very hairy yarn from Iceland. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but this thing is super duper hairy and the yarn is very thick. And this is a yarn, if you're itchy, don't get this yarn because this is quite intensely scratchy yarn. It is super warm. I really have come to love it. But if you're at all sensitive, don't get this yarn because this is prickly stuff. Like, it has really, really long hair and you can't get those out. They are just part of the yarn. And I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this sort of sweater, they don't have this yarn to be worn as a sweater for inside. Like, they actually use it for like fishermen sweaters and wearing outside, like as a proper heat and warmth layer. So that explains it. I knit this and then I thought, well, I don't really know if I really will use this ever because it is super warm. It is not really something that you just chuck on over a t-shirt because it's a little bit scratchy. But again, winter came. I say winter, it's the 1st of December. Autumn came, the time when you start to turn on the heating came. And I try not to heat too much too early because I want to wear my sweaters and I don't want to waste too much energy. And this came in so handy. And this is super warm, but I was really surprised when I realized that this is not really, like, it doesn't make you boil. It doesn't make you feel like you're suffocating and super hot and super uncomfortable. Like, this is, like, I think just, it's proper wool. So it's really warm without actually making you sweat and feel disgusting, which is great. Always a benefit. So I've worn this a lot more than I thought. Like, not every day because it is a very warm sweater, but if you're really cold, if you're coming back maybe from like a long walk outside, this is actually really good. So I really enjoy it. I want to say a sweater's quantity, but it's more like a lot of skeins that will amount to a sweater's quantity, but I'll have to figure out how to use them. So I'll knit another one of those eventually. This is not how do I say this? This is nothing that I need 10 of. I don't need 10 of these sweaters because I think 1 or 2 is enough, but I do really enjoy them and I thought it was really interesting to get to know a completely different yarn to what you're usually used to. So yeah, quite enjoyed this. Trayster sweater. I enjoy all of Jennifer Steingass's patterns, so no surprise there. And I think that's about it. Oh wait, there's one more thing. This pattern has you do 3 color work, but who has time for that? I don't. So what I did is I actually just kind of modified a couple of stitches. I don't really know where. It wasn't a huge modification to make it work just so you only have 2 colors at a time in one round, and it worked fine. So yeah, I guess my message for you is dare to play around with your patterns. If you don't want to do 3-color work, just change it. So there we go. 2 more sweaters to go, and my voice is going. Next up, we have this beauty, which is the Rocane sweater, and I don't know the designer. I'm sorry. Christina Danahy? Something like that. Like I said, project pages, Pom-Pom magazine, whatever. I knit this also quite recently for Amy of Stranded, her Rocane knit along. And I used some old stash yarn. This was some Drops Lima, which I think is the thicker DK version of Drops Flora, which I talked about before. So this is also wool with a little bit of alpaca. I had originally bought the yarn to knit a Veronica cardigan, and then I looked at it and I wasn't really sure if I was going to wear the shape. So I decided to knit this instead after having it in stash for a while. This is a bottom-up sweater, which started with a provisional cast on, and then you go straight into the stockinette, and then later on you add the ribbing. So I hadn't done that construction in a while. It's a very different shape to what I usually make. I really like it. I wore it a lot for a couple of weeks or months. Kai didn't really like it. This is, I think, the first sweater that I knit that Kai doesn't like. So it shouldn't really affect me too much, but maybe it does. I'm not sure. I think what was unusual for me is that it's quite fitted at the top, or at least it came out quite fitted at the top for me. I obviously could have knit it looser, which I didn't. And I wore this a lot in the beginning, like I said. I really like how this looks with like a shirt underneath, and you can kind of see the collar coming out. I think that looked really cool and smart and hip, I guess. But I guess that's why Kai didn't like it. Anyways, men, who care? The yarn, this is, if you're wanting a affordable, commercial yarn that for color work, for anything really, Drops Lima is always a good choice. It's relatively, I think it's quite soft. It wears really well. You can see with this one, it has a bit of a halo going on, but it just wears well. It drapes well. I don't know why it isn't my favorite. I think I like the more sort of sheepy yarns, but this is a wool yarn, and like I said, I would prefer this to like a Cascade Heritage or anything any day. Just because I feel like the Cascade yarns feel a little bit more superwash and plasticky than this, but that again is just my personal experience, and I haven't tried all of Cascade's yarn. So anyways, if you want a good sweaters quantity for maybe your first sweater, if you want to try something new, you don't want to spend a ton of money, I would recommend this. And then lastly for today, for you, I have another sweater that I wear quite a lot, and that is wrinkled. This is the Branches and Buds sweater. Don't know the designer. I think it is Karen Bostic-Hogue, but don't quote me on that. This was again one of the earlier of my colorwork sweaters that I've done this year. And this was also one of my earlier Holz Super Soft knits. So the yarn is Holz Super Soft, the same that I use for my Birkin, the same that I use for my Dam Yakalopa number 1, which I haven't shown you today. I've used this yarn a lot. Like I said, it's super loose. It's a super fine yarn. Sorry for the crinkles in the sleeves. Apparently that's what I do. And I knit this on a very loose gauge. So this pattern is actually written for DK weight yarn, but you know what? You can do whatever you want. You don't have to knit DK weight just because it says so. So I just knit this on a really loose gauge, and it's really interesting because my friend, she knit the same sweater in a DK or something, and it's this super woolly and warm sweater, whereas this turned into a very light top, and I love it. I used to wear this a lot, then I kind of forgot about it. I keep repeating myself on that. But you can see it's almost see-through. I knit this on a 3.5mm US size 4 needle. I have experimented with Holz Super Soft a lot in terms of what needle size I use. So I tend to go down to a 3 or 3.25 if I want to do more like a proper sweater, but 3.5 for a very loose drapey sweater, and yeah, I really like it. In terms of the sweater, there's the option to put little colorful bugs on these branches, I suppose. I decided not to do that just because I really like the effect that it gives like that. I knit the colorwork yoke in one night because it's super easy and super fast. And I actually have yarn to knit a second one, or I have yarn specifically bought to knit a second one out of these in a much more bright apricot color paired with a white. And it's definitely, whether I do it with that yarn or another yarn, it's definitely a pattern that I know I'm going to come back to because I do really like it. And I think it doesn't even have any short rows, or I didn't do them. It's just got a really nice, easy, open neckline, and I actually really enjoy it. So I actually wear this in summer as well, and I would recommend it. Even though I pulled it out before and I was wondering, did the yarn fade or has it always been this light? Because it feels very, very light to me right now. But who knows? Nothing I can answer right now. So that is it in terms of my sweater episode number 1. Like I said, I can see myself doing them again in the future because I have more garments and other knits, I guess. I just pulled out a couple that wanted to be on the podcast today. So I would be really, really interested if you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too boring. If you have suggestions for future episodes, what you would like to see in terms of positive feedback, please do let me know. Maybe not the right time to say it anyways, but if you have questions that you want me to answer on the podcast, please direct them to the Ravelry group, because I know I get questions on YouTube and on Instagram, and sometimes they're really in random places, like underneath a certain post on Instagram. And what happens is I will forget them and I will not find them again when I do a questions and answers episode, which is something I'm also thinking about. So let me know if that's something you're interested in, and if you are interested in something, then use the thread on Ravelry, and that will make it much more likely that I will actually answer your questions. Not because I'm a bad person, but because I forget things. Lastly, because this is a sweater episode, I thought I would very quickly touch upon how I care for my sweaters. I know there are different ways of handling your knits in general. What I do is I hand wash all of my sweaters, whereas I machine wash all of my socks. And yes, I also machine wash those that say don't machine wash them, because they're socks, and I have this philosophy about hand knits in general. I knit in order to wear things, and I knit a lot, and I have a lot of garments, so I'd rather use them and wear them and wash them rather than have them in a closet and then not use them because I'm scared of washing them or something. But just because you don't need to wash your sweaters a lot. And I know that sounds dirty and disgusting, but it's wool. You will actually just, like, the fastest way to destroy a sweater is if you wash it all the time. And same goes for for store-bought sweaters. Like Kai, he has these really nice sweaters. Some of them have cashmere, and he just throws them in the washing machine all the time, and they just don't last that long if you do that. So what I do is I wear my sweaters a lot, and I also hang them outside a lot. I like to hang them outside when it's really damp and rainy, and they soak up all of the water, and they lose all the crinkles, and they are pretty much as new. So you just hang them outside overnight, and that does the trick for most of the time if you're not playing in dirt or something. I take my sweaters off when I'm cooking. Side note. But when I do wash my sweaters, I hand wash them. I wash them with Eucalan, not because I'm sponsored, but because that's the only wool wash I've ever owned, and I really like it. I have the lavender scent, which smells amazing. And then I throw them in the washing machine for a spin cycle. I use the 600 setting, which every time I talk about this on the podcast, I agonize whether that means it is 600 spins per minute. I feel like that would make sense, but it's just 600, whatever that means. So I toned that way down. I think maybe I could even just leave it at, I think the automatic setting on my machine is a 1200. maybe that'll be fine, but I want to be careful, so I use that, and I just spin my hand wash garment for, I think it takes about 12 minutes, and then when it comes out, it's relatively dry most of the time, depending on the yarn, of course. And the benefit is that rather than squishing it into a towel, this way I feel like the fibers, they're just like, they loosen up, and it's really nice. So I really like using my washing machine for that. I feel like it also removes the whole issue of having a ton of wet towels, which is what we used to have, because I used to block a lot of things with towels, and then that gets really annoying for Kai because the bathroom smells like a wet sheep. So, and like I said, they dry so much faster if you do that. So that's how I care for my knits. And that means that really hand washing is annoying. But if you just dunk it in water with Eucalan, leave it there for 15 minutes, take it out, throw it in the washer for a spin cycle, like not a washing cycle, just the spin cycle. It's actually not a lot of work at all. So that's what I do in terms of my sweaters. And yeah, I also have given away a couple of my sweaters to my sisters when I realize I don't really wear them, or they're just a tiny bit too small for me. I like to give them away. And obviously, because this has been the year of the sweater, I'm more and more aware of what fits me, and I try to knit garments that I know in advance that I will actually wear a lot, because I have a couple of sweaters in my closet that I don't wear. Because I don't like the style, because back then I didn't really know how to pair colors, because the things you do when you start knitting sweaters. So maybe I'll show them to you one day. But I've slowly been trying to get rid of those by giving them to people who actually like them, and focus on knitting sweaters that I actually wear. And also, like I said, with the Let Lopi sweater, for example, of course I knit for fun. So I will never feel bad for adding another 2, 3, 4, 5 sweaters to my collection. But I do try to think about what I will actually wear in the future. So every now and then I do a crazy colorful sweater like the faded boxy, which I think for me is pretty bright. And I know I'm not going to wear that as much as I would a gray sweater. But I try not to knit all the gray sweaters either. Like, I try to find a compromise, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So that is just my personal way of doing it. I'm aware that other people do things differently, and I would love to know how you plan your knits, how you plan your sweaters, what your favorite go-to sweaters are. Like, all of that really interests me. So that's just my way of doing it, and that may change in the future, because we've had that happen in the past where preferences change, so that's fine. So I think I've rambled on quite a lot now about sweaters. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you did, and then maybe we can do something like that again in the future. Now I'm going to stop talking about sweaters and start knitting sweaters. I really want to cast one on today. Let's see if I allow myself a cast on. And I will see you back in the usual podcasting format. Thank you so much for watching.